G'day and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute. Today I'm joined by two guests from our community, Tecton and TortugaJones. How are you gentlemen doing today?
Doing very good.
I'm doing pretty well.
Cool. So we've got them both on visualizers today because apparently they're too ugly for camera, but that's okay. We won't hold that against them. And the usual spiel before we get started. So we've got the hashtag Jaden in the comments if you're interested in winning an F7A and a Super Hornet. And basically, unfortunately, Eric's passed away, and his friend that brought his ship for him is looking for a new home. So if you're interested in that, leave a comment below. Also, your thoughts on today's episode would be great too. The other thing, real quick, is I had contact with a gentleman that was a tank driver or current tank operator. If you can get back in contact with me, because I've lost your contact details, I need to talk to you about an upcoming episode. You contacted me a couple of months ago, so if you get back in contact with me, I would really appreciate it. And unfortunately, I've forgotten who you are. Sorry. Try to hold it all in my little head, and it's got too big. All right, gents. Where do you want to start today's show? And we're obviously kicking this off as a series now. We did the search and rescue episode and the medical one, and I learned a lot. Unfortunately, probably didn't do too well viewership wise because I think a lot of people clicked off because it said medical and search and rescue. But I'm hoping to do a more popular topic today, which is obviously mining. So I think we'll start Tech with you and then Tortuga. I'd just like you to tell me your profession so people know what you are as professionals, so they can see what we're talking about today. Who wants to go first?
Tortuga go first.
Okay. So I'm a real life miner. I work at Cortez Gold Mine in northern Nevada. Been out there for 7 years operating the massive land equipment. So hopefully I can bring some insight in how real life mining is turned into digital mining within the game.
That's what we're hoping to learn today. And Tech, what's your area of expertise?
I'm a geologist. I'm mostly focused in exploration and geomorphological processes.
So you find the rocks essentially, and Tortuga pulls them out of the ground. That is that a simple way of looking at it?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Okay, so where do you guys want to kick it off today? We've got notes here, but I'm just going to play dumb. So, who wants to kick it off?
So let's talk about what we already got in Star Citizen. So as far as mining goes, which is actually one of the more fleshed out game loops that we got the ground mining with our rock DS hand mining, and then in space and surface you got the prospector and the mole with the concepted Pioneer. No,
Orion.
Orion.
Orion? Yeah, that's the one. The big one. Yeah.
Big one.
I'm doing it dirty that way.
Yeah. So when you think about how mining's done, you can think about hand mining, like somebody going out to a creek and taking their little pan and shuffling some dirt around and hoping to find some gold nuggets.
Yep.
With the rock, it's kind of like somebody who has a sluice box set up. They're starting to get equipment, build up their resources, and then you get into the prospector. That's your small scale mining. The mole being bigger, and then the Orion is your top dog. That's like your large corporate mines, the big, huge pits that you see from space.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff.
I got a question already because you went to somewhere that I didn't think you were going to go straight away, and that's like now when we do mining, it's quite drastic to the environment, as in it like destroys a lot of the area. And I've noticed it doesn't really have that in Star Citizen. So really, the only thing you've really got to deal with in Star Citizen is the extra inert material. So do you think they're going to go down that area where you have other stuff to clean up or anything like that? Like, or I feel they're not going to do that. That's my personal thought.
So that's actually kind of one of my pet peeves. kind of in a way. You go to those outposts, those so-called mining outposts, and they got those little things that look like oil well pumpers. And it as a professional miner, that makes no sense to me, but I'm guessing that's an environmental friendly way of mining without disturbing the top surface.
Yeah.
And I know ground destruction is something that is very difficult to do in games, so they probably won't.
There's no reason though that they couldn't, like, if you went to a particular area, you know how they've made the cave entrances and stuff like that, that they couldn't make a 3D artist that is a quarry. And so
Yeah.
basically, you might go to, say, someone that's on Hurston where they just don't give a crap about the environment, and they literally are just doing quarry mining, where everyone else is doing it really ethically. Maybe, you know, so maybe that's the thing down the line. More art assets that actually link into how things should potentially look. So, but you are correct; it is a lot harder to do morphing of terrain than people realize. Yeah, but no, that's an interesting point. Sorry, I've already tangented, and it's been less than a couple of minutes. So yeah, apologies.
Wait. Can I tangent too?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, this actually brings up one of my pet peeves on the current mining system. The nodes.
Right.
They keep calling these things deposits. It's insulting.
Or explain, please. You have to elaborate. You can't just make a statement.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Elaborate,
What
please.
these nodes that they give us, these quote unquote outcrops that don't have any plating, they don't have any dip, they don't have strike, they have nothing to really. We'll get into this more with my section, but they don't really count as deposits so much as more a random boulder here.
Yeah,
Uh,
and that is something I'm, because I know what you're going to go into, but yeah, I guess from a developer type of perspective, I actually struggle how they're going to get to the detail that I think you want them to go to, and as you said, I think we'll talk about that when we get to your section. So we'll go back to the different types of mining in SC compared to real life. So do you want to go through that, Tortuga, in a bit more detail, please?
Yeah, so when you start off your mining career, you might start off with the hand tool,
Yep.
And that's the very basic of the basic. Doesn't give you a lot of options, and I know they have the concept for the larger version, which could have more production capabilities. But then you take your next step into the ground vehicles, and you got your rock and your rock DS, however controversial that one is. And that's where you can really start collecting large amounts of precious materials. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, we're still relying on station refinery or raw materials selling.
So essentially at the moment, basically the difference is you get a more powerful laser and you can carry more. Is that really what it's like in real life as well? They just get more powerful and can carry more, or is there literally more differences in that? Also, I guess there'd be speed as well, maybe.
Yeah, in a way, because in real life, somebody who's going out to a creek bed is looking for visual gold, whereas in the mine that I work at, you can't even see it.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's microscopic, and we literally move millions of tons a day just to get a few ounces.
So that's kind of like I'm now looking back at the ships. I'm looking at something like an Orion where it just consumes everything and filters it out.
Yeah,
Whereas
and
opposed to when you're there with your little pan, you're basically visually looking for it. And that is akin to hand mining, isn't it? You find this little node that is, it is that little, I've forgotten what they call it, but like
precious
quantanium.
pocket.
Yeah, and you just visually kind of almost like, I'd almost think of like it, like you're pulling it off the surface. You're not actually really mining it. You're just kind of like extracting it. It might be another way to put it. In game terms, because that's what it, you're just pulling it straight off the ground. You're not really, like, you still have to break it apart, but in realistically you could just kind of pick it up, couldn't you, because it's just sitting there. Yeah, but I get you.
Yeah, and
Do
you want to go after that the good stuff, right? You don't want to get any of that garbage because it's a waste of your time.
mm,
But in large scale mining, you just take everything because even the smallest amount is worth something.
yeah. So I'm trying to now like picture that middle ground on something that's like between the mole and the Orion, and I'm wondering, is that like bringing in scanning tech, so to speak, to get to those like more honed in? Like where do you feel the middle ground is?
So prospecting would be one thing, but I think like a large mining ship would be something that could gather, maybe not break rocks up as small as they need to be, uh, with like an Orion or a prospect or a mole, um, but like break it in the initial stage, suck it all in, and then just eject the inert
Yeah.
so that you only have uh, refinable material, regardless of what it is.
See, that brings us full circle. We kind of come back to what we said at the start about the environment stuff. If you've got too much inert material just hanging around you, it could be a visual clutter and actually give you away and things like that.
Yep.
Yeah, that could be really interesting. Where if you don't kind of move on quickly or clean yourself up, someone's like, oh, there's a lot of debris over there. There must be a mining operation. That and then you look at something like the Orion. It can probably hold onto it and dump it just before it leaves or something like that. So yeah, I like this. This is interesting. Okay, I see where we're going now. Is there anything else you want to add there, or do you want to move on
So
to some other stuff like the missing stuff?
they, well, we can move on to the missing stuff. That's actually where I was going to go.
Hmm.
We're missing a ship that they concepted, and that was a medium-sized refinery ship.
Oh, yep. The one that from CitizenCon. Yep. The
Yeah,
last
uh,
CitizenCon.
that is a huge boost in um, productivity, ability, to be able to take another ship's cargo, refine it, and then chuck it into a cargo hauler to go sell. Right,
Mm.
you're cutting out that middleman, you're cutting out that station.
So, just quickly then, that refinery ship, do you think that will also be dealing with a lot of inert material as well? Like it essentially, it's that sorting part. I'm assuming so. So basically, something like a prospector is just going to have everything, and so essentially, you're like when you look at a ship like the Orion, it's a mining ship, a sorting ship, and a refinery ship. This refinery ship is the refining and sorting part, where the prospector is just the mining part, as an example. Is that how you see
Yes,
it? Yeah, okay.
yes, correct.
Okay, I see it the same. Yeah. Okay. Um all right. And so you think that's the only ship that's missing, or I'm sure you've got more. But yeah.
Well, you could get into a larger logistical ship. Like people underestimate the value of a Kraken in mining because you could have your refinery ship sitting there. You could have your prospectors come in, land on that pad, dump their cargo in the Kraken. Uh, Refinery ship pulls it into it and dumps it right back in. Right,
Yeah,
you could be there for hours.
everything you're
I feel like this
saying,
is something we've talked about before.
yeah, everything you're saying is one of the reasons why I recommend the Kraken so highly over, say, something like an Idris, because the Idris is more combat focused. I think people really underestimate the ability of support craft. 100% agree with what you just said. Tortuga, you were saying, oh, sorry, Tech, before I kind of cut you off.
Oh no, that's fine. I was saying, Tortuga, I think we've had this conversation before.
Yeah.
Mm, many times by the sounds of it. All right. Is there anything else you want to add to that, or should we move on to some of the stuff that Tech wants to talk about, Tortuga?
Oh, we can move on.
All right. So
No,
Tech,
no, not yet. I'd like to actually join him on this one.
no, please
Okay.
feel free. Feel free. What do you want to add
There's
in?
something that I kind of see missing that I don't quite agree that inert material needs to be handled by the refinery aspect of the ship.
Okay.
Uh, for example, if we look at the mole, in
Hmm.
that long hallway right behind the pilot and co-pilot, there
Yep.
is a sorter in there.
There is.
Yes, that tumbler on the right side, that's for sorting out other materials.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't
And
disagree at all.
I don't quite believe that a refinery should necessarily take part in it as much as that. Um, as well as I believe there's an issue with the prospector right now.
Mm.
It doesn't actually prospect. It's being used as a miner when, if we really want to go into it, I think Chris has actually stated this once before. Its main purpose was to get a core drill.
Mm.
It was to get a
Yeah,
core
so
for you to do land claims.
that is something that we really like. So I guess what you're talking about there is all those images we've seen of the prospector where it's actually got its laser down facing and literally like being used like a bore. It also makes me think that down the road they might not just be used for mining solid materials, but we might also see them mining gas nodes, and then you might put a cap on it or something like that. What about mining oil? So like liquids and gas and solid materials in the future. That I'm just theorizing here, but I actually think that that might be a thing in the future. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I know that might be a little bit out of your field, um, but do you think that's a possibility for some of these ships in the future?
Certainly a possibility for Star Citizen, but I know it's been mentioned on social media before, but the all-encompassing laser that does everything is kind of a easy out for developers.
Hmm.
And I would like to see the Orion not rely on the laser to do the mining, but to just fracture the rock and then everything gets brought into the ship and crushed and sorted
Yeah.
and refined in there.
Well, that's a big difference you mentioned there. See, the Orion's actually only got one mining station, but it's actually got two tractor beam stations. So I think that really is a big difference. Like it's more you bring it to the rock crusher type of analogy. So they're more like I almost picture um, there's another ship that breaks up the rocks. You know how they've talked about the vulture as an example, and I know this is not mining, but using depth charges to break up the rocks. I almost picture there might be people out there blowing the rocks, and then they're brought in by a tractor beam just to be eaten by the Orion. Because if you look at the Orion, I don't see that just driving up to this big rock and being able to chew it. It can't fit
No.
into that mouth. It's too narrow. So there has to be a way that they're broken up. And whether that's
Yeah.
done by lasers or tractor beams or cut up, we still haven't ascertained that yet.
I believe the original concept for the Orion had missiles that were used to help fracture
There we go. Sorry, I
the
didn't know that.
rocks.
It's been a while since I read that. Yeah, okay. So if that's the case, there you go. Missiles are the way that it potentially breaks it up. But you see where I'm going here. Um, so that ship that's missing that large mining vehicle, because we've got the capital and the small and the medium, that large one might have a special way to fracture rocks. It might be along the lines of fracking, if you get my point. That it might have some kind of sonic depth charge or something that it just shoots and shatters rocks, and then you got to tractor beam them all in. You just don't know at this point. um, could be rather interesting to see though. But anyway.
Yeah, certainly.
Do you theorize something like that, Tech, or how do you see it more going with the? Because I know when we first started talking, there is a whole. You were telling me there's a whole plethora of people that are actually theorizing what it's like to be mining in space. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I actually entirely agree with having some sort of explosive used to help break up into smaller pieces. And I don't quite think it will be missiles in the end just because of pricing. Uh,
Right.
you got to make sure something's economically feasible if you're going to do it in mining. But what about drones that just deliver a bomb, basically?
Yep. That would work. Also, well, at the moment, if you look at something like the Pioneer, it just kind of heats up the rock until it fractures. Um, do you think that they could go down the line of just having a laser and you kind of cut up the rock, or you look for weak points and you hit it with a laser and it makes it crack, or something like that? There's so many different ways they could go. Honestly, like would be speculating till the cows come home at this point. But
I
yeah,
would love a situation where we aim for actual fracture lines along these rocks. there are actual lines that if you hit them with certain force, it is more likely to break. And
Okay,
so
that's
this would
interesting.
be awesome.
Yeah. Does put that little bit of realism element in it, but I get a lot, like I can hear my developer brain going, but that just, people are going to see the same thing all the time. They're just going to be looking for that, because the model will actually have a line in it and they'll be looking for it. So you're always trying to hide those things as a developer, not actually emphasize them, but that could be an interesting way to go. All right, so the next thing we got here in the notes, Tech, that I want to go into is how to find rocks in real life. So do you want to talk about that for a bit? Because I think, as you kind of alluded to before, we use nodes currently, but it's not really kind of like that in real life. It's more like, I don't know, I guess it's following the train. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure thing. All right, so we might want to pull up the first image.
Yep, so I'm going to switch us over to the browser. That's what he's talking about here. And I'm on the first one. Here you go.
All right. So this is generally how we're just going to look at a gold deposit for most of this right now. It's just simpler. In this case, we have a convergent boundary where one is subducting under the other. So it's going to have oceanic crust going underneath the continental. It
Tectonic
releases,
tectonic plates.
yes,
That's what you're talking about. Yeah, cool. Yep.
yes. Uh, it releases CO2 and different gases, which are volatile, which causes the asthenosphere to heat up, which in turn causes the lithosphere to heat up. And as it heats up, materials start to become more buoyant. They start to enlarge, and they start to make their way up
So
through.
for those people that are just listening and not visualizing, he's talking about different layers of the Earth's crust, essentially, reacting in different ways. Is that how you would put it, or
Yes,
you're
yes.
using big words that I don't understand? So if I don't
That's,
understand, I don't think other people would understand. But please continue.
that's why we have the pretty picture.
Yes.
So from here, we've got these deposits that have formed up near the surface crust. If you can go on to the next picture.
Yep. I can do. Sorry. There you go.
All right. And then that's where we get our volcanic actual deposits. But now we're going on to where we actually usually discover things. We discover things more after they have eroded and there's a depositional environment. In this case, we'll be going over an alluvial fan, which we do have a picture later on about.
Yep. So,
So
so,
the
you, so you're saying the main way we find like materials at the moment is where a part of it's eroded, and it kind of shows us that that particular material is in that area, and we then go exploring into that area. Is that kind of what you just said?
yes, but it will be more like downstream, downhill. You'll find smaller. Uh, let's go back to the sluice box and the information from Tortuga,
Mm,
where you'll be in a river, you'll be sifting, you'll be sluice box, and you'll have little bitty pieces of gold.
yep.
Well, those came from somewhere. You'll follow it up the river towards the mountainous region, and you'll find, uh, in this case of this one, you'll find
Mm,
free gold, and deeper than that, you'll find a gold quartz vein. Uh, so
okay.
usually, the easiest way to find a deposit is based on prospecting and finding something lower down on the totem pole.
Mm,
So if we go on to the next picture,
all right.
we
Okay.
have an example of an alluvial fan. Now,
Oh, yeah.
I don't
Okay.
know how many of you guys have been to Daymar, but that planet is covered in these things.
Interesting.
Absolutely covered. Uh,
So you can almost see, like visually, where the water has moved through the earth and created that um, erosion layer. Yeah.
yes, those are deposits. All that silt and sand
Mm.
down after the mountains, that is deposited afterwards.
Yeah. So
All
you
that
can.
material came from further up.
Yeah. So you can see that big crack at the top, and it's just kind of. Yeah, I can see that. Okay. Maybe I should talk to my mum. She used to teach geography too. Last person I think to talk to, but yeah. All right, yeah. So that's just all sediment that's basically been pushed down from the mountains. Okay, that makes a lot more sense now, and that's the type of stuff that a pioneer would sift through with his pan to pull out those smaller visual pieces that you could actually see.
Yes, and then you'll follow the topography of the terrain and you'll go up, usually.
Yeah.
Uh, And then after we're here, the next one's glaciers. It's another type of depositional environment. So it's uh, if you're not looking at Daymar and you're looking at, I think the planet was Cellin. It's been a while since I've done this, but a
Yella's
very
the
cold planet.
Yella's the ice moon, so it might be Yella.
Yella,
Yeah,
sorry, my
that's
bad.
okay.
I
That's
haven't
okay.
been to those moons in a while. And you'll look for maybe examples of glaciers instead of examples of erosion. You'll look for, you'll see on the bottom right the Kettle Lakes.
Yep.
Yella had a bunch of them near its mountains.
Right.
At first, you might think they're a
Wow.
crater,
Okay.
but they aren't shaped.
Oh, that's
They
cool.
they don't have an equidistant
S-
distance
s-
from the blast center.
So I've got
Uh,
to ask, do you think they've actually researched this stuff or just happened to have taken photos and put them in? Do you think they've actually gone to the level of detail that you are going to find those rocks in the areas you're meant to find them? Like, are you actually really hopeful they're going to get to that point? Because it sounds like that's what you're alluding to, unless I'm wrong.
yes. Back when mining first was introduced into Solar System, was that 3.2,
Oh, I can't
3.3?
remember. I can't remember.
Um, Either way, back then, when I wanted to find a sedimentary deposit, an area with a lot of them, I
Mm.
would go to Daymar, I would look for the alluvial fans, and I would find 100 in an area. They were as common as could be. When other people were looking through the planet and finding nothing in other areas, they kind of followed the
Mm.
terrain. If I wanted to find metamorphic materials in, you said yellow was the ice planet. I still don't remember those two because I hated the
Yeah,
ice
yeah.
planet.
It's all good.
Um, I would look for mountains, and then because for some reason mountains didn't spawn much, I would go down from there, look for a terminal moraine or Kettle Lakes, and I would find them there. And that actually leads me to what I think is coming.
Right. Interesting.
So right now we're hitting these nodes, right? And these
Mm-hmm.
nodes, as I've said, they're basically just rocks and boulders. They're
Yep.
not deposits. Um, well, you're not going to find those as often in the mountains. You're going to find more deposits. You're going to find outcroppings. These things you find in the sedimentary areas, the depositional environments. So as we went into those mountainous zones, there was less. So how do we change that and make them right?
Yeah. So I've just had that moment that I had with the medical and search and rescue video where it just opened my eyes, and I now see the level of detail. That's crazy town. So literally, like,
Mhm.
I can see how a prospecting ship is now going to be more tailored at something like due to its size, where something like an Orion, clearly being in space, is just going to eat an entire asteroid. You know, the mole, I can see that coming down and getting the larger rocks above the prospector that the prospector can't get. But as you said, they're not going to be as common because it's a larger uh, sedimentary deposit and stuff like that.
Wait for this
Wow.
to get better.
Yeah, it's crazy. Sorry, I just thought I'd share. I don't know if anyone else that's watching has just had the same epiphany, but that's kind of crazy. All right, please continue. That's great.
All right, so we all kind of agree it would be difficult to program in land destruction, correct?
Agreed.
Yeah.
How difficult would it be to instead have drilling into a data cache that exists in the game files that is a deposit?
Not that hard,
Like,
realistically, because as long as you don't see it, but you can put the data that it's there, if you know what I mean.
All right, so as we get more into this region of mountainous zones, please go to the next picture.
Yep. Ah, here we go.
Okay, now we have a cross-sectional area of the subsurface.
Hmm. Right.
Now, as we're in this area, say I wanted oil. I'm going to first look for certain features. I'm going to look for some impermeable layer that has formed a parabola.
Mm,
For example, right above the 4, you'll see oil, but if you look above that, that brown area, that's a
mm,
parabola made of shale. Shale is an impermeable barrier, unless it has a lot of cracks, of course.
mm.
And I don't see any faulting in that region, so it would be likely for it to be there. But I've gone a step ahead. I'm sorry, I just got off topic.
It's okay. It's okay.
Back onto the mining of caches and zones. As you go into this mountainous region, you should be more likely to hit this type of material, where you
Right.
have to hit a cache or zone, where you have to do a lot more research and a lot more exploration to find it, compared to
Mm.
these rock nodes that, as I've said, they seem more just like they've been deposited there
Yeah, so it
than
sounds
actual
like you're
information.
what you're talking about is going into actual surveying and scanning, and what would actually the way I'm looking at this with a developer mindset is it would be almost like a simulation that runs, and basically you're scanning the environment and basically looking for um access to the stuff underneath the ground. Wow.
So
Yes.
Because this is
can I
leading into that exploration part of the gameplay. But yeah, sorry, continue.
cut in real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
So the developers actually talked about that when they introduced the land claims, right? About scanning the land claims for their profitability and
Mm.
finding what's underneath it, and then you could set up your outpost as a mining outpost and capture that.
So essentially, what you're saying there is having something like a terrapin, even a little terrapin, um, actually scanning and finding really profitable areas that people can claim. That data is going to be extremely valuable, but it's not just going to be this quick find thing. You're going to have to search an area really thoroughly and really know what you're looking for. So essentially, like what you do, Tecton, as a geologist, is what a part you could just go into being like a geological scanner, so to speak, where someone else might be scanning and looking for other stuff. So, oh wow, that's just really changed my whole perspective on where you could go in exploration as well. Wow. Okay, yeah, sure, that's amazing.
Do you guys remember that that scanning suite in the Carrack?
Oh, it's been a while, but yeah,
Um, it probably wouldn't be very hard to create a cross-sectional area on its hologram.
that's true.
Yep.
And when it comes to the actual value of this data, Tortuga, you might have a little more info than me on this, but how much does your company pay for information?
Millions, billions.
Yeah,
Ka-ching. Wow.
the information is usually worth, what is it, about a tenth of the entire deposit?
Wow.
Hmm.
Okay,
So I'm
so
making a quick number.
realistic in real life terms though, are they a lot harder to find than people are going to expect? It's not going to be really something like if you're going to have to know what you're looking for. Like this is we did a video recently with Space Tomato, myself and Sia, where we're talking about gameplay professions like skill versus knowledge, and this is a skill based thing because you're going to have to learn the topography of the land, and will learn to know what you're looking for. Like all these things you're talking about, like sedimentary rock formations and all this type of stuff. You're gonna have to learn to read the terrain to know where to look. Yeah.
That's the start, but it goes even further. Let's go back
God.
to the prospector.
Yep.
Remember that old photo of it drilling straight down?
Yep.
And I said it was for core samples?
Hmm.
So, one of the main things, after you've found a location, you've made a cross section using strike and dips, which we'll talk about that in a minute. That was the next tab. You want
Okay.
to take core samples of certain depths and really plan out your cross section, make sure everything was right to find out just how big the deposit is so that you can put a price to it.
So essentially, you're talking about taking core samples in different areas to kind of build up a 3D geography based map type thing. Is that what you're saying? Just so I can get on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you can visualize how big the deposit is underneath the ground and the shape of it and things like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And now I'm with you. Yeah.
Now let's go back to that image for a moment and we'll
Back
figure
to
out a
you.
little more of why this is important. All
Yep.
right. So we see this folding that's happening with the crust, where they've got names on the far left for most of them, and
Yep.
on the far right they have nothing, right?
Yep. So you're talking about this bit up here, or
Yeah.
yep.
You can actually correlate them to the other side, of course, using strike, dip, and that's on the next tab. But there's some handwork you can do where you find an outcrop, and a real outcrop, not these nodes that they're giving us. And these outcrops have a dip direction. If you go to the next page, it will be easier to understand.
I've got a question now. So, are you actually suggesting that the prospector is actually doing core drilling when it's doing that, looking down? So yeah, I'm with you now. Okay, so it's doing
Yes, I
core sampling. Okay, so it can be
I
used to find bigger nodes that he could sell the data. Is that what you're alluding to?
yes, I believe it will be core for data
Oh,
gathering.
interesting. Okay. Yep.
Um, I also think the mole will probably be able to do it, but it's not as economically efficient to be taking out a three-person crew just for data.
Makes a lot of sense. So it does give that rock scissors paper gameplay. Okay, I'm getting it. Yep.
Now we see this image here, and this has dip direction, strike, and it has what is the other one? I'm forgetting it off the top of my head.
So sedimentary layers is the other thing.
Yeah, that's just about layering.
Okay.
There's different kinds of sedimentary. There's hard rock. There's igneous. Well, igneous is not usually layered, but still. Um, and use this to actually create that image from before. This tells you what direction the plate is going towards.
Mm-hmm.
It tells you how steeply it's moving. And so if you go back to the other image,
Yep.
we're going to go back and forth between these two. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Um, you can use this to actually create this 3D image, or this 2D image you see goes towards you and away from you at the same time.
Yep.
So you see this small area you can only mow this oil patch. It's tiny, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it goes for miles and miles and miles in the same line.
Yep.
Uh, you're pointing here. I'm gonna wonder why. What are you after?
I'm trying to figure out exactly what you're talking about on the image because you said oil and I don't see oil on
The
here.
green material above the 4. I'm using the key on the right
All
side.
right. Yep. That one there. Yep. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Yeah, I'm
Uh,
with it. Sorry. Slow. I'm
so
slow.
this
Sorry.
actually goes for miles in the direction away from us in the image.
Yep.
And that's part of the strike and dip as well. But mainly, the strike and dip is to give you a full image of what this looked like originally. For
Yep.
example, the terrain you see here has been eroded a ton. All of those layers that are just cut off by the
Mm.
per what is that? I can't read it from here. The periphery.
So you're talking about up here how it's all been eroded away because you can see that this would have actually, you can almost see
Yeah.
how it would have flowed.
Yeah.
So it's all been cut off across over time. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And you'll match them when you're making this cross section to know which deposit is which. So if you find a type of material in what is that? Let me pull it up on my screen.
So you're essentially saying you'd follow the terrain to dig in to get to this. Is that what you're trying to say? I'm just trying to follow in layman's terms.
But let's say we're not after the oil. We're after some material we have found in the Thermopolis shale, which is the one right to the left of
What color?
Kootenai. It's brown on the left side. It's got words coming off of it.
Man, I'm not.
Thermopolis shale.
Oh, in there. Yep, in here.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm after something in that deposit. But that deposit's not near the surface right now. It's got a small amount that is, but it's not a wide area, so economically it's not as viable as, say, go over to the right side just above the oil.
So just here. This
Above the
one.
oil, right there.
Yep.
Uh, now, that one has a wide area that's not actually that deep. You don't have to mine very deep to hit it. Therefore, you can do an open pit mine or some sort of drilling if we have drilling that's that advanced in the year 29, whatever, whenever this actually releases. Uh, and you get this wider area that you can then mine, and it's more economically feasible than hitting the area on the left side.
Right.
And this is big for mining. I'm sure Tortuga can talk about this a little more than me. Tortuga?
Yep. So that goes into your land claims. That goes into the value of your scanning data. If you're going out there to be a prospector to sell this data to big orgs that specialize in land mining, That's the kind of stuff you're going to be wanting to get. That's the information you're going to want to get.
Interesting. Yep. So it's not just going to be about finding the resources, it's also going to be like how efficient and cheap they are to mine as well. Wow, I didn't even consider that. Wow.
Yep. Because you
Mm.
take like gold right now in game, right? It's all this worthless gold because gold is nothing. You want quantanium.
Mm.
So having a good deposit of, say, underground quantanium would be extremely profitable. That's land that is going to be fought over. That's land that's going to need to be defended.
Mm.
And that's land that can make you a ton of money.
Yep. Yeah. Wow. I got a lot more out of this than I thought I was going to get. But wow, yeah, sorry. I hope everyone else is getting the same that I'm getting out of it. It is a little complicated, especially with some of the terminology, but yeah, it makes a lot of sense when you put your mind to it. That's a crazy amount of detail I didn't think they were going to go into. That
So a crazy thing about it is I also noticed how the devs kind of went towards logical placement of deposits early on as well. So they do the research.
yeah.
They may dumb it down a little bit to make it easy and fun for people, but it's going to follow a very similar pattern.
To real life. Yeah,
Yep.
that's good. I think that's a good thing because as I alluded to in that other episode we talked about, which was skill versus knowledge. I think that they both have a part to play. Like so yeah, it's got a lot more knowledge in it than I thought it was going to have. But yeah, that's really interesting. So there is definitely a search element to mining. It's not as just scan it appears. Because at the moment we're really just dealing with surface nodes, aren't we? We're not really into the drilling stuff yet.
For as fleshed out as the mining gameplay loop is, it's still extremely shallow.
Yeah. Wow.
Currently, I would probably rank mining in Star Citizen as equal to a gold prospector in the old days.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So
You just kind of swinging a pick and hoping to hit something.
So if we're at tier 0 at the moment, where would you see the final tier being? Like tier 4? Like just give us a ballpark. And I know it's a guess, and I know it's a bit of a speculation, but how many levels do you think that they'll put in, or do you reckon it'll just one day they'll turn it on and we'll have that more complex stuff? Because I don't see that really having as many steps as people think.
Tier 4 would be a pretty high estimate. You're going to need to get into that kind of Orion mining, separation of material, mass gathering kind of stuff. And then you got the underground mining, the ground plot mining. So that's like tier 2, tier 3.
Yep.
Possibly top it off with a tier 4, maybe add liquids into the mix.
And gas.
Something interesting.
Yeah, liquids and gas could be tier 4. Yeah. Do you see liquids and gas coming? Because like I honestly think that gas has to be a thing, knowing the Starfarer exists. So I can see there being a smaller ship that goes down to planets and gets the gas, unless you bring a Starfarer down and then the rocks drive out and the rocks do it. You get where I'm going there?
As far as gas mining goes, terrestrial gas mining compared to gas giant mining, it's so much more difficult to dig it out of the ground than scoop it out of the atmosphere.
Yep. But
and there's so many gas giants in the verse already.
What if there's gases that are underground that you can't get to though? As in that you can get to though, that is just rarer. Yeah, it's more complex or something like that. Kind of like how the Pioneer can go down to planet, but the Orion can't. You get where I'm going there. So, and again, put that back to the Rock and the Rock DS. Can you see where I'm going there? One of them can do the gas, but the other can't. You get like it already. You can start to see an advantage for the Rock's DS's existence. That could be a real thing where one can do gas but the other can't. That could be really big. Mm.
Okay, now before we go on to that one, well, I personally like the Rock DS for my own use.
Yeah.
Um, I don't see it doing gas mining.
Okay.
Gas mining is on the level of bases.
Yep. Okay.
I
So
don't
so more
ship.
like building those pumping things that Tortuga was talking about before. Yeah. Okay. I'm going. I
I
see
hate
where
those things.
But that could be a gas mine, not
Yep,
not a solid,
exactly.
so to speak. Yeah.
Like
Okay. I'm
like
with
the
you.
aspartame and the other stuff. And those could be used in the production of some rarer stimulus supplements that you could
Oh,
take.
wow. So this is just now also gone. So we've brought in the scanning part, and we're talking about mining, and now we're also talking about base construction. Wow. Okay. So you can see oh yeah, some real
Well,
layers
we
to
can
it.
go for about 4 hours.
So yeah, it's
I'm not
quite.
kidding.
Mm. No, I think it's been. We are probably starting to wind down. We're about 45, bit after 45 minutes at this point. So yeah. Is there any other things do you think you guys would like to add before we kind of wrap up here?
Well, there's things we can go on to with the Orion, but I don't know if we should.
Oh,
Well,
Maybe we should. Oh, go
no,
ahead. Go ahead.
I don't have anything to add on the Orion, but I do have a saying that's pretty common in the mining industry. It goes, if it's not grown, it's mined. So think about
uh,
that in all the production that we'll see in the verse later
hmm.
on.
Mining is the tier one production of all
Yeah.
materials.
Yeah, I sussed that out a long time ago myself, but yeah, I totally agree. A lot of the foundation, like a lot, like most of the resources are coming from it, and so it will really be the bedrock of this game. So yeah, to see that it's going to go to a really nice complexity like that, I think that's a really, really, really good thing. And at least it's a lot. Like look at something like World of Warcraft, where it's just ding, ding, ding. So at least it's going to be at a more complicated level than that. And I am interested to now, like as I said, I've had that epiphany where it's a lot more detailed than I originally suspected myself. And I bet you in the comments below, there's going to be other people that say the same thing as well.
If you guys want any kind of reasoning for why this should happen in game, besides just being awesome, look at it this way. Currently, they have said they plan for mining to be not infinite. Minerals should be finite in the universe.
Yep.
The node-based system would be gone in a week.
Yeah. I
There
they
is
they
not enough resource.
Yeah, I think at the moment the node system is just a really quick, easy way for them to do it so people can mine now. But I think, like what you said, very, very initially, where it's it's coming out where the sediments should be and stuff like that. It also means that it creates a lot of things like real life because bases will have to move on, people will have to move on, a whole planet will get mined out, and the whole that whole org or orgs will have to move from one planet to the next. It is it creates interest. I can see how the whole thing's going to work, because when the mining moves, the whole town's going to move, the whole base is going to move. It just creates more and more stuff. And if they wanted to, they could essentially, after a planet's been emptied out, they could maybe spawn a few back over time. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then maybe some small people would come back and get a small little town cropping up and stuff like that. So I can see from a developer perspective why they would do that. Um, yeah, I don't know if you guys agree, but I can see the
Yep,
reasoning.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. New deposit could be just discovered. It could have some erosional event. They could
Yep.
have events that basically cause new things to be found. Uh,
Well, they do have the tech as well that they could technically redo the. They don't have to do the whole planet, but they could redo a whole section where, like you
yeah,
said, an event happens. Like, so maybe there's a landslide, and it uncovers like a really big node that was near an old town, and that all of a sudden that old town just springs back to life for 6 months, and then it goes again.
they could do a slip fault, and all of a sudden, the deposit that wasn't economically viable now has a larger surface area. That is, it's had itself cut away from the others. There's
Yeah.
plenty of things they could do. They could have a volcanic eruption, which brings a slight amount of metals up. or gemstones. Gemstones are a little bit more tricky due to just many things.
You could take that to the extreme where the whole planet cracks apart.
I was just gonna say that.
I know. Like you've just opened my mind, because like there's little things like how you were saying about it's not economically viable, and then it is viable. Half the planet could be uneconomically viable, and then something happens, and the other half is viable. You know, so that's really interesting. That's really cool. And you can even see things coming back, like I wonder, and this is just a theory, things like, so say the whole planet does crack apart and all the mining equipment that was there is destroyed, but then the reclaimers can come in and salvage it all. You see what I mean? So it's creating gameplay not just for miners, but for other professions as well.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, yeah. So you can see where it can go. It's quite deep.
Yep.
Bases moving is why I'm highly contemplating the Pioneer right now.
That
only reason... The only reason I can't recommend the Pioneer is because it doesn't have LTI and it's notoriously hard to get. I really wish they gave people... I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but LTI on all ships that you purchase, it just needs to be a thing. Anyway, you want to say, Tortuga, before I kind of...
Yeah, the Pioneer is way too big of a ship to just use on singular plots per the org. That's something that you're going to want to use again and again and again and again and again, and just keep it profitable.
Well, we've heard rumors recently that it's moving more to a factory-based thing where it just creates flat packs as well. Like it may be able to just create flat packs, and then say a ship like a Banded Merchantman can just deliver it, or even a smaller ship can just deliver a flat packed outpost that you can set up with the tractor beam tool and stuff like that. So it's interesting to see where it could go. But yeah, this has been a kettle of worms, guys, or a can of worms. A kettle of worms, that's a weird visual reference, but a can of worms, because like I can just see that it's open. You've opened my eyes to a lot of stuff today. I'm gonna have to. I'm interested to see what how the other Inforunners find this episode. So yeah, I think we'll cut it off here, and I thank you both for joining us. You guys are on the Discord as well, so would you guys take any questions that anyone had from today's episodes? And you'll be reading through the comments, I assume, as well, and replying?
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yep, cool. So if you've got some questions, leave them below for the boys, or consider joining the Discord and joining the community there. We have a really good community that is very helpful, not just on things like Fix My Fleet, but topics such as this as well. So thanks Tecton and Tortuga for joining us. I'll pump this one more time before we go. So again, if you're going to leave a comment below, hashtag Jagan for Eric Lanza that unfortunately passed away, and his mate is looking for a new home for his ship, which is an F7A and Super Hornet. Thanks again, guys. I really got a lot out of this episode. I was hoping it would go here, and it did. I'm really happy about it. We are looking for more professions down the line. I've got one lined up on repair with some technicians. I've got mercenary people in the works, tank operators. That guy I'm still looking for. If you're that tank operator guy, get back to me, please. So I've got a few professions in the work. If you think you've got a profession like these gentlemen in real life that can be put into a series that you would like to share with people, please feel free to reach out to me on Discord specifically. You can leave a comment on the YouTube, but it's a lot harder for me to follow up. I'd love to do more of these. I got out of this today what I thought I was going to get. So thanks again, gentlemen. I really appreciate it.
Yep, you're welcome.
All right. With that, we'll love you and leave you, and catch you in the next one. Say bye, guys.
Have a good night.
Bye.